Before we talk about the findings of this paper, I want to pause and talk about how we read research like this and why critical disability studies exists in the first place. This article looks, on the surface, like a strong and authoritative psychological study. It uses standardized tools, formal statistical methods, and language that signals credibility, and that is exactly why it's important for us to slow down. For practitioners, especially educators, studies like this can feel inaccessible. They assume a deep understanding of the psychometrics, statistics, abnormal psychology, and diagnostic frameworks. And when those assumptions go unexamined, research like this can actually cause harm, not because it's malicious, but because of the ideas it normalizes. One of the first things that struck me about this paper is how entirely deficit-based its language is. The children in the study are described only in terms of problems, mental health problems, executive function problems, intellectual problems. There's no discussion of strengths, coping strategies, assets, or adaptive skills. So I want you to pause and ask yourself, if this is how research describes children, how are practitioners meant to see them? From a critical disability studies perspective, this is ableism. Not because disability is named, but because disability is framed only as lacking and deficit. This paper also assumes a very particular idea of normality. Concepts like executive functioning, planning, goal formation, and self-regulation are treated as hierarchical, as if there is a universal standard everyone should approximate. Success is defined by how closely children resemble neurotypical, compliant norms. What's missing is any questioning of those norms. Who sets the goals, and why conformity is treated as neutral or desirable? Critical disability studies asks us to notice that these are not objective facts. They are value judgments embedded in measurement. Methodologically, the study relies almost entirely on standardized proprietary tools, the Child Behavior Checklist, the Welshler Intelligence Scales, and the Brief. These tools are widely used and professionally sanctioned, but they are also inaccessible. You cannot see the actual questions. You cannot evaluate how problems are defined. You're expected to trust the authority of the tool rather than to interrogate what it's actually measuring. This is not neutral science. This is institutional power. Another striking issue is that none of the children were interviewed. All information about mental health, behavior, and executive functioning came from adult observers, primarily the parents. The children's own experiences are entirely absent. As educators, you already know this matters. What parents observe, what teachers observe, and what students experience are often very different things. When research relies only on adult perceptions, especially perceptions shaped by expectations of normality, bias is unavoidable. There are also serious methodological concerns that don't require advanced statistics to understand. The study began with 109 potential participants and ended with just 40. When sample sizes shrink this dramatically, error increases and findings become unstable. Yet the paper still makes strong claims about prevalence and prediction. Additionally, the IQ range of participants spans from 40 to 88, a very wide range, yet everyone is treated as part of the single analytical group. In a small sample, this becomes a major confound, meaning the study is methodologically flawed. The authors even acknowledge problems with diagnostic frameworks that they rely on, noting limitations in how intellectual disability and adaptive functioning are defined, but then continues to use those tools anyway. This creates a contradiction. The tools are flawed, but still treated as authoritative. Cultural context is also another blind spot, whereby the paper briefly notes that Norwegian populations score lower on the Child Behavior Checklist than other societies, but then offers no explanation. Using North American norm reference tools across cultures requires justification. Without it, differences may reflect culture, not pathology. Later, participants are grouped into clinical, borderline, and normal categories using cutoff scores that are statistically convenient but conceptually arbitrary. Forced categorization like this obscures nuance and inflates deficit. At this point, given the number of confounds, I'm not particularly interested in the findings themselves. When the data and assumptions are this unstable, the results lose meaning. And yet, in the discussion section, the paper moves quickly to assert that it found what it was looking for. This reflects a broader issue in psychological research known as the file drawer problem, where studies with null or contradictory findings are less likely to be published. Research that confirms hypotheses is structurally rewarded even when methodologically weaknesses are present. So what do I want you to take away from this? First, it's not your job to unpack all of this. You're not expected to be statisticians or psychometricians, but you are allowed and encouraged to ask critical questions about what counts as evidence. Second, this matters beyond academia. Open access research like this is treated as credible knowledge by AI systems, policy frameworks, and educational practices. If we don't read critically, ableist assumptions become automated. Critical disability studies gives us a tool to ask: 1. Who is being measured? 2. Who is missing? 3. Who benefits from this framing? And 4. What are the ways of being rendered invisible? That doesn't mean throwing out psychology altogether. It means holding multiple ways of knowing at once and refusing to let deficit be the only story we tell about children. You're not rejecting psychology or quantitative methods or standardized assessment outright. I'm just asking you to slow down, notice, question, and contextualize. I'm hoping you'll become more cognizant and capable of this with critical literacy of institutional knowledge. Psychology is just one way of knowing. It is powerful, consequential, and deeply institutional, but it's not neutral, complete, or self-correcting on its own. It's a position of responsible engagement, not rejection. So my take-home message to you is this: you are not expected to become psychologists, reject assessments, and distrust all research. I'm asking you to develop the habit of asking, who produced the knowledge? Under what constraints? For what purposes? And what consequences? That's an ethical literacy, not a technical one. So why this matters in schools? Let's face it, educators don't have the luxury of simply opting out of psychology because you encounter it through all the ways of like IEPs, psychoeducational assessments, behavior plans, diagnosis, funding eligibility, and evidence-based interventions.